Hey guys, it's Christy and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me. Today we're going to be doing the new makeup releases tag. So before we get into it, I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel before you leave. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy, and let's get into it. Okay, so I believe this tag was started by Samantha and Angelica Nyqvist, so I will leave their videos linked down below. I just thought this was a really fun video. I know we're at the year-end roundup right now, so this is just so fitting. So the first question is, what mainstream release lived up to the hype most this year? And this was really interesting because although there was a lot of good makeup this year, I don't feel like it was the best year I've ever seen for makeup, if that makes sense. So there are a few that did live up to the hype, in my opinion. So I really loved the Natasha Denona My Dream palette. So we knew this was coming for quite a while, and I really loved this one. This one is just such a beautiful everyday color story, so easy to work with, or you can step outside the box a little bit, especially with this dual chrome here. I just think this is a super beautiful palette, and I've really enjoyed this one. It was definitely much anticipated. But then a palette that kind of got leaked really early on in the year, but that was released for holiday, is the Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk Face Palette. I love this one. So I have raved about this one so many times, so I'm not going to stay here too long. You can tell the blush has some serious use, and so does this highlight. These two aren't used nearly as much, but I do kind of want to play with them more. But these top two just have my heart. This face palette is definitely one of my very favorites. This one I think ranked number one of my best palettes of the year because it's just that good. This palette definitely did it for me. The next question is, what indie release lived up to the hype most this year? So this one is interesting because it's actually a goal of mine to test out a lot more indie makeup in the future. I love my mainstream makeup, I really do, but I do want to get a lot more into indie makeup as well. So that is definitely a future goal of mine. I will say what kind of deters me sometimes is that because they are indie brands, sometimes shipping isn't as easy. And I think that is what makes it challenging. However, the releases that I noted, the first of which is from Lunar Beauty, and this is the Nude Prism eyeshadow palette. This is beautiful. This is, I've said this several times, but this is me in an eyeshadow palette. And what I love about this is the beautiful range of neutrals, but these shimmers are the smoothest shimmers I have ever played with. I have loved up on this palette so much. This is one I got back in the summer and literally had to tear myself away from in order to review other things. And then a palette that I got very recently but was released back in the spring is the Sigma New Mod palette. So this one was released, like I mentioned, all the way back in the spring. And this one originally got my attention because I believe there was an influencer event and some of my very favorite creators were there for the launch of this palette. But then opening this up, this is the most beautiful mauve toned color story. This is really pretty and definitely reminiscent of the Natasha Denona retro. So if you like that color story, you may really enjoy this one as well. The one thing I don't like is how reflective this gold backing is, because even though it's really beautiful, it really kind of throws me off with the colors a little bit. So I don't like that. But overall, this one is definitely as good as I expected. I talked myself out of this so many times, and then Black Friday happened and I ended up picking this one up, and I'm so glad I did because it really is beautiful and their formula is actually amazing. Question number 3, which releases did not live up to the hype? And I definitely picked, for one, the Patrick Ta foundation. If you've seen my try on of this product, if you've seen the speed reviews where I mentioned this one, or if you've even just seen my recent foundation ranking, I hate this product. And I don't like to use the H word when describing makeup. It's makeup, it's not that deep. But I do hate this product. This foundation just does not work for me, and the foundation is not the worst part. The foundation is like it's supposed to be like a really nice cream, and if you do go in with a really sheer layer, it's fine. But if you build it up at all to get some coverage, it just starts feeling so heavy. It gets so dewy that I look oily by the end of the night. But the worst part is the powder, which maybe is more of a finishing powder, but for me, adding it on top of the foundation, it just went directly into my pores, and now I've just got white dots everywhere. So this was just a really terrible combination. And then if I wore these two together, the areas where I just had foundation would be super oily, and then the areas where I had the powder would look super dry and my pores would be so obvious. Yeah, this is just not it. I've tried them separately as well and I cannot get these to work. So this was the biggest letdown. I love Patrick Ta, especially. I love almost everything he comes out with, and I was so excited. I was so ready for this, and then this just didn't do it for me. But in that same vein, I also have to share a palette that I actually do like. I feel like was a bit of a letdown. So this is the Natasha Denona Retro Glam palette. So this was so anticipated since last year she released the retro palette, and everyone was so disappointed because everybody wanted the greens, even though the retro is stunning. Everybody wanted the greens, which I totally get. And so we knew Retro Glam was kind of coming this year because she had hinted at it and all of the things. So we knew this was coming. And then this ended up getting leaked very early. The color story does indeed look absolutely beautiful. And I do enjoy it quite a bit. And I really do think this lives up to the retro name. I think this perhaps should have been what she released first, but I think she did a great job with the color story. The thing I wanted to mention though is that when I got this palette, at first I was like, yeah, 100% see so many looks I want to do with this. And then when I got it and started playing with it and really seeing the different undertones, I thought, oh, it just really wasn't as intuitive as I expected. So there was that. And then I feel like you get these three pinks, but there's really nothing else to anchor them, in my honest opinion. And then you have these two shades, which are different, but they look so similar. And then I don't feel like we get enough depth. I wish there was another deeper matte in here, whether it be a green that's even deeper than Evergreen or something else. I do like this palette. Again, this is actually one of the things I have on my eyes today. I love this, but I just wish there was maybe a deeper matte green or even a deeper brown. I don't know, but something to really anchor things down just a little bit better, and I feel like that would have been easier. I also don't understand. I understand you can rearrange her shadows with the holes in the back, but I don't understand why she doesn't just lay them out in a way that makes sense. I've noticed this with many of her palettes, is she just tends to lay them out very chaotically sometimes, and I don't really understand why. So while I do enjoy this and I do think it's pretty, I do think it maybe didn't live up to the hype that we expected. Number 4 is what was the biggest curveball? I have two things for this. So the one, I have to mention the Bologna sheet mask. I'll pop up a photo because I didn't pick it up. But what? That's all I've got is what the Frosted Flakes collection, which I heard was really good from Glamlight, also just seemed really random. But I also wanted to mention what was a bit of a curveball for me personally this year is my sudden love of cream bronzer and the amount that were released this year. Apparently there was a lot that came out and I tried to try all of them. And this is coming from someone who until a few years ago didn't wear bronzer at all. So I don't understand what happened, but suddenly I love cream bronzer. I have a ton of cream bronzers. They're some of the highest ranking bronzers in my collection if you saw my recent bronzer ranking. So that was kind of a curveball for me. I was not expecting that. Like I mentioned, until a few years ago, I didn't wear bronzer at all. And then finally I got into powder bronzers and playing with them and testing them out and started to love powder bronzer. And then I thought there's no way I'm getting into creams. That's going to be way too out of my element. And here we are. So that was a bit of a curveball for me this year as well. Number 5, what was the biggest letdown / snooze fest of the year? So there are some letdowns. There's a lot of letdowns, but the biggest one, the worst product of the entire year that I expected better from is Charlotte Tilbury, and that's the Matte Eyes to Mesmerize. These are by far the worst products of the entire year, and these came out in January, so we didn't even start strong. These are just awful. I've spoken about them a lot, but they come in the beautiful little pots that all of her Eyes to Mesmerize shadows do, and they look super creamy, but they're not. When you actually touch them, they feel more like clay. It's impossible to get any out. They're so hard, and to blend them out, it's like blending cement. they pretty much dry down before you can even blend them out, so you can't even work with them and you can't use more than one shade together. These are just impossible. These are a terrible product. I have not heard a single person say they like these, and for good reason. They're not it. And Charlotte Tilbury is a brand that I rave about, that I love with my whole heart. I pick up all of her releases and I always love everything. So I was really disappointed about that, and that's why that one is the biggest letdown. Not only is it the worst product, but it's from a brand that I love so much. Number 6 is what was the unsung hero of the year. I pulled a few things that I think aren't talked about nearly enough. The first one is from L'Oreal, and this is the Age Perfect 4-in-1 Tinted Balm Foundation. I did not see a lot of reviews on this product, and there should have been, because this is actually really, really good. This is a very customizable coverage. It's more like a solid medium, but you can definitely build it up to get more full coverage. You can sheer it out. I love it. It's not heavy on the skin. It's not cakey. It doesn't do anything you don't want it to do. It doesn't cling to dry patches, and it's just so easy to wear, just again, because you can literally just dip your sponge right in, apply to the face, and you're good to go. This is such an easy product to work with. I really enjoyed this one, and I have not heard many people talk about it. I will say they do have a pretty awful shade range, so perhaps that's the reason, but overall, I enjoyed this foundation so much. I reviewed a lot of foundations this year, but I really, really enjoyed this one, and I didn't hear many people talking about it. I also wanted to mention the little Kaja eyeshadow stacks. So this trio in particular came out this year. This is in Peach Madeleine. So I think they've had these stacks for a while, and some of them are all matte, some are all shimmers, and some are a mix. So this one has a matte shadow on the bottom, then you have like a sparkle topper, and then you have a really pretty, almost like a cream shadow. These look so beautiful together. They are so sparkly. I love this little trio because there's only 3 shades. It is so easy to create a look. And then because this little cream shade is so sparkly, you get so much impact. I love the way this looks on the eyelids. So I highly, highly recommend these stacks, and I don't hear nearly enough people talking about them. And I also wanted to say that while these got a little bit of hype when they were released, there hasn't been much else. They were a holiday release. This is from Charlotte Tilbury. This is the Hypnotizing Pop Shots. And in particular, I want to mention Emerald Eyes. I am wearing this today. So this one was part of her holiday releases. So instead of releasing an eyeshadow palette, she released a face palette and then some single shadows, which she called her Hypnotizing Pop Shots. And there was a mix of neutral shades as well as bolder shades. So I picked up a neutral shade in Rose Gold. It's beautiful. But I also picked up Emerald Eyes, and this is the most beautiful single shadow. So first of all, this packaging is my favorite packaging of all time. But then inside here is the most beautiful, impactful emerald eyeshadow. I love how this looks. This is beautiful for a one and done, or you could create a full look with it like I did. I used the Natasha Denona Retro for the bulk of the look, but all of the green sparkle is this. And I love this. I did not hear a ton of people talking about these. Like, I saw a lot of reviews when they first came out, but I did not hear a lot of people talk about them. I think the reason for that is just that they're so expensive for a single shadow. So if you can get these on a sale, whether it be 20-30%, I would highly, highly, highly recommend these. They're so beautiful. I think some of their best shades might be sold out by this point, but if you can get these, I would recommend going for the more colorful options. The more neutral options, while I think Rose Gold is gorgeous and it's definitely more creamy than this one, you can get the same thing from a ColourPop Super Shock. This though is truly special. I was curious to try out the blue one, but it was sold out by the time I got there. However, I highly recommend Emerald Eyes, and this one did not get enough love, in my opinion. What was the best makeup collab of the year? Unfortunately, I did not try a ton of collaborations this year, but as far as influencer collabs, I really wanted to mention Sigma. So one of the products is not here yet. Brianna Fox collabed with Sigma to come out with a brush collection, and I know it's going to be good. She is by far one of my very, very favorite creators. She's just brilliant when it comes to makeup. She teaches it very well. And then even just watching her vlogs, I feel like I'm hanging out with a friend. And she's just somebody that I I would love to be friends with if I knew her in real life, you know? So I had to pick up her brush collab because I also know it's going to be good because her artistry is phenomenal. I also saw that Kelly Gooch, who's another favorite of mine, she did a favorite set with Sigma, which I think was amazing. A set I do have, but they're dirty, so I'm not going to show you, but that was the BK Beauty and Megan Lombardi collaboration. She did a favorites with BK Beauty, and she is one of my favorite makeup artists. I follow her on Instagram. She's brilliant, and she did a favorite set with BK Beauty, which is definitely my favorite brush brand. So I thought that was the most exciting. And all of the brushes she selected are absolutely perfect. I literally use all of them. Number 8 is what was the best holiday release this year. So for this one, I actually chose the Makeup by Mario Ethereal Eyes palette. This is gorgeous. This has been very well loved by me over the last little bit. And the reason that I knew this was a front runner was because Mario does not release a ton of palettes. He doesn't have a ton of releases. So when he does release something new, it's really exciting. He hasn't released eyeshadows since 2020. So to release this, so exciting, and it is so beautiful. It is the most basic neutral palette there is, but I love a good neutral palette. I really do. Do I need more? No. Will I keep buying them? Yes, because that's what I love. That's what I love to reach for. And the sparkles in here are so beautiful, but also so appropriate for this time of year. I did film a YouTube short doing the cold girl makeup trend that's going around right now. I use this. I did a little holiday look yesterday. I use this. This is just perfect to get that perfect little amount of sparkle to your lid, or you can create a full look. I just think this is really, really beautiful, and I think he did such a great job with this one. And then I also wanted to mention Pat McGrath because she did release her Mega palette this year, which I do have and I do like. What was really special about her holiday collection was the release of her quints. So normally when she releases her giant Mega palette, she also releases some quads. But this year she did quints. And this is a completely new format for her, and she knocked it out of the park. So this first one is Nude Allure. Beautiful. You get one matte for shimmers. I do wish there was maybe one more matte, but absolutely beautiful. This matte is the creamiest matte in the whole world. I'll just say that right now. Love this one so much, but I also really, really love Bronze Bliss. So this one is definitely more of your smoky, deeper color story, but this black is surprisingly creamy and easy to work with. I am not somebody who uses a matte black for anything other than an eyeliner. So when I first created a look with this, that's exactly what I tried to do. I tried to use the black as an actual matte shadow to really define the outer corner. And I was really nervous because, again, I do not use a lot of black, but I did it. And this one made it so easy. It was just so easy to sheer out and work with. I was so impressed. But what really surprised me was this beautiful middle shade, which is a really unique shade. It's almost like a cream, and it is the sparkliest, most metallic silver shadow, and it is so beautiful. I think she did such an incredible job with these. The formula in her Mega palettes is so good, but this is just incredible. So I really love this. And the final question is, what are your predictions for releases in the new year? Okay, so some of these is kind of cheating because I have seen certain spoilers, but I do anticipate a foundation and concealer for Makeup by Mario, which would make me so happy. I will be grabbing that as soon as it is released. I'm also hoping to see more eyeshadows from him. I just love his artistry. I think he's brilliant. I do want to see more from him as well. I'm also predicting that we're going to go a little bit more toward matte skin, matte foundations. I think we're just going back to that way. I think we're going to stick with the more medium coverage, but more toward the matte and a little less glow. Given that the Pantone color of the year is going to be a magenta, I also think that we're going to see a lot of magenta makeup. Not that we need any more pink palettes or anything like that, but I do anticipate seeing a lot of that as well. And as usual, I am definitely expecting more Disney collabs and maybe another face palette from Charlotte Tilbury, maybe some more quads. Aside from the singles, she hasn't released a palette since last year, so I can definitely see more of that coming. Other predictions. I would say Patrick Ta will probably have another new palette. I'm curious to see if he's going to have a concealer in the new year. This last one is more of a wish that I wish every year and doesn't happen, but I would love to see Pat McGrath release bronzers. That's more of a wish than a prediction, but I decided it still counts. That is it for me today. So I will leave everything I talked about today linked down below, and I will also leave the questions linked down below, as well as Samantha and Angelica's video. Let me know down below if you played along. What are some of your answers? I would love to hear from you guys. Thank you so very much for watching. If you're new here, I hope you'll consider subscribing before you go. I do upload at least 3 new videos every single week. Thank you again so very much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!